Disaster management. Disaster management is a systematic, planned approach for taking care of before, during, and after effects of a disaster that takes place in a particular place or region. Disaster management is the process of management and organization of resources for dealing with every aspect of disaster and for protecting the life and property of living beings from expected or anticipated hazards. The process of disaster management is to provide emergency and immediate relief facilities and rescue operations for the people affected by the disaster, and also to facilitate their programs for rehabilitation and recovery. The different phases of the disaster management program are as follows. 1. Prevention of disaster. 2. Preparedness for disaster. 3. Response to disaster. 4. Mitigation of disaster. 5. Process of rehabilitation. 6. Methods of reconstruction. Disasters. Disasters are terrible situations that affect the ecosystem and the normal life pattern of the people living in society. The situation of disaster leads to the loss of lives and the destruction of property, injury to people, along with a number of health problems that require immediate medical treatments to save people, and also the environmental conditions. People lose their assets. The impacts of disaster are as follows. 1. It completely disrupts the normal life. 2. It causes a major loss in regards to life and property. 3. It also leads to the loss of farming and agriculture and affects animals and wildlife. 4. It hampers all forms of development projects. 5. It negatively influences the emergency systems. 6. It affects the system, healthcare, etc., depending upon its intensity. Hazards. Hazards are sources which can cause loss of life, health problems, property damage, loss of livelihoods and services, etc. They have an adverse impact on social and economic situations and environmental damage. The hazards can become an emergency with negative consequences, and when it goes beyond the control of people, it can be termed as a disaster. The hazards can be categorized into the following. 1. Chemical hazards. These refer to the loss caused by chemicals. 2. Physical hazards. These refer to the loss which can be seen, felt, or touched. 3. Ergonomic hazards. These refer to the loss that an individual faces due to the poor workspace or work design that affects the musculoskeletal system, such as ligaments or muscle injury. 4. Psychosocial hazards. These refer to the occupational losses that affect the mental and physical conditions of the workers. Biological hazards. These refer to the loss due to fungi, virus, or any other biological substances that affect the health of living beings, mainly humans. Technological hazards. These refer to the loss because of technological failure and nuclear power plant failure. Vulnerability. Vulnerability is a situation that describes the set of consequential conditions that adversely affect human beings, buildings, and the environment due to the impact of hazards. It reduces human beings' ability to prevent, prepare, and cope with the impact of hazards. The various aspects of vulnerability and their impacts on the social, physical, economic, and environmental factors are long-term constraints that affect the community's ability to cope with the losses and to recover from the damage. Vulnerability can be categorized into 4 situations, which are as follows. 1. Physical vulnerability. This is determined by the physical aspects in regard to the place of settlement, design, materials used for the infrastructure, the density of population, location of the settlement, and more conditions. 2. Social vulnerability refers to the situation where the people are not able to cope with the impact of the hazards due to the various social conditions of the individuals, societies, and the community. 3. Economic vulnerability. This is dependent on the economic conditions and the status of the people, society, community, and the country. The people living in poverty would be more prone to disasters since they lack the resources to build strong structures and protect themselves from different aspects of the hazards. 4. Environmental vulnerability. This refers to the degradation of the land, deforestation, levels of pollution, and depletion of natural resources, which are the important aspects of environmental vulnerability. Resilience. The concept of resilience has made countries alert with identifying the principles and measures required to protect their socio-economic developments from disasters. Keeping these in mind, countries across the globe are sharing the agenda of resilience with respect to the hazards, conflicts, political and other forms of climatic threats to development. Risks. Risk is the likelihood of a potential disaster. It helps in analyzing the loss of life, injury, or destruction and damage of property due to disaster that could take place in a specific community, society, or country during a certain period of time in the future. Risks involve the probability of harmful events because of hazards and the vulnerable situation of the environment that can result in a big loss, with destruction to the ecosystems and disruptions of economic activity. Risks are also termed as disaster risks. These describe complex interlinks that come between the process of development which leads to generating the conditions of vulnerability and exposures to hazards.